Turns out he's a major cinephile. They don't watch enough movies. It's a very simple formula. And here we go. Hello there. Welcome to episode 5. It's here, folks, a milestone for this podcast. With season 2 of The Boyz dropping today on Amazon Prime, I had to bring in a ringer to get you guys ready for the continuation of this super show. See what I did there? And get you all caught up on season 1. I'm joined today by someone who is almost as obsessed as I am with all things superheroes, movies, TV shows, and video games alike. All the way from my time back with Marist, Red Foxes for Life, it's John Butensky. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Nick, thanks for having me on, buddy. I'm honored and I'm flattered and I'm blushing. You guys can't see it though, but I'm blushing.
First guest here. Oh, he's blushing red, like the red fox that he is.
Oh yeah.
So John, I figure let's let the fans get to know you a little bit before we get going. First off, you may have to think far back on this one. What was the last movie you saw in theaters?
Last movie I saw in theaters, it very well could have been Joker, actually.
Okay.
Which kind of fits the theme of superheroes. That's the last movie I can remember seeing, because that was almost a year ago, and I haven't been to the movies in a while. But
a lot of us haven't.
I guess that's a good point. Are there any other superhero movies that came out before the pandemic that I'm missing?
For me, the last movie I saw was Birds of Prey.
I didn't see it in theaters. That one I didn't see.
That was like right before quarantine pandemic life hit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking that came out, but I was kind of boycotting that. Just my love of Zack Snyder, so I was boycotting that. But what Joker came out almost a year ago? Because I remember.
I thought it was around like October.
Okay, so that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Joker was actually the first movie I saw by myself in theaters.
Wow, was that empowering?
It was actually really nice. I didn't have to talk to anyone. I just watched a great Oscar-worthy movie and. It was enjoyable.
Man, I was terrified.
Underrated.
I was terrified the first time I did a movie by myself. I had a friend in college who also has a podcast, The Good, Bad, and the Watchable, Nick Rojas, who used to preach it all the time. And in Ohio, I lived by myself, and I think it was Avengers Age of Ultron. I really wanted to see it. I wasn't going to wait. So I get in the movie theater. Was no reserved seats at the time, so I had to get my seat. But I got there early. I got like upper middle, like as high as you go, right in the middle. Snacks, I was ready to go. People were not happy that they had to sit around the one person who was sitting by himself. But ever since that, which was like 2015, like spring 2015, I've been all about movies by yourself. It's almost weird going with people now.
You know what? Now thinking back on it, I definitely saw Star Wars in theater, so that was December.
Yeah.
And when did Ford versus Ferrari come out?
No, I did not watch that.
Yeah, good movie though.
I'm glad that you could experience that, man.
And just to clarify, it was like a weekday at like 1:00. So like it wasn't like a Friday. It wasn't like a Friday or Saturday night. Like I just had nothing. I had an off day, and I'm like, you know what? I really want to see this movie. Got no one to see it with.
I take offense to that notion that you think that going to the movies by yourself is not like a fun social weekend.
No, it very well could be.
Yeah, it used to be. But since, we can't watch things in theaters really, even though as they start to open up, it's sort of a iffy subject. But with that being what it is, what are you currently watching, or what did you recently watch that you really liked or hated?
Well, funny enough, since we're talking about it on this podcast, I recently rewatched season 1 of The Boyz for a refresher for this podcast, which was great. Anything else recently? I was watching Sopranos here and there. My brother, that was really good. I'm gonna watch it from start to finish. I haven't really gotten into any TV shows in a while, but the last show I watched from start to finish was Peaky Blinders, which is outstanding on Netflix. Cillian Murphy, just one of the most underrated actors in this industry, I feel like. Probably, if you don't know who he is, he's in every Christopher Nolan movie pretty much. So, Scarecrow, Dark Knight trilogy, he was in Dunkirk.
Probably in Tenet, we just don't know yet.
Probably. He was in Inception. A lot of movies that you probably just didn't even think of, but really, really great acting. Tom Hardy's in it.
Yeah.
Underrated show. So good.
It's on my list, man. It's, the last thing I did the Boys rewatch as well to get us ready. And I did watch the original My Bloody Valentine for the first time, also on Amazon Prime. So that was for like a 1980s slasher movie where the genre probably got a little muddled. Honestly, it's pretty good.
I've never heard of it before.
I haven't. There's like a 2009 one that came out where they were really trying to 3D stuff. So I didn't see that because I did not want to pay for that like by itself. But for an 80s movie, like pretty unique.
Not cheesy.
Surprisingly not for like a minor anti-Valentine's Day slasher movie. it was something. It was good though.
All right, good.
Since we're talking superheroes, what is the greatest superhero movie out right now?
Like came out recently or ever?
Ever.
Man of Steel, of course. No, I'm kidding. One of my favorites. It's an inside joke between us.
It is.
My favorite superhero movie is Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Easy. It's a great mix of superhero thrill, but also kind of like spy and espionage action. Has a great serious tone to it, but also is humorous at times, but not cheesy humorous. Like since you mentioned like Age of Ultron, don't love that movie because of its kind of unnecessary humor, but like I don't know, like every time I'm running and on your left, like it just never gets old. Like with Sam Wilson, like just it's got great humor in it that like it's not that just like it doesn't go too far. Yeah, just great action scenes. Chris Evans, of course, is just the absolute man. He's fantastic in it. And Robert Redford, nice surprise for the MCU. So
and
that's a great one.
As you said, Anthony Mackie is a great cast. They crushed it with the casting.
Yeah. He's an awesome. I can't wait for him as Captain America moving forward. Like I was kind of torn at the end of Endgame that it wasn't going to be Bucky because I just felt like it was a more natural fit. But like it's not that he can't carry the mantle because he certainly can. He's obviously got the acting chops, and I'm sure they have some really good plans for Bucky in store.
Yeah, they are both going to be in the Disney Plus series. Sebastian and Anthony Mackie are both going to be in it, and I think they even said it's the girl from Revenge. Is it Emily Van Camp?
Is Sharon Carter.
Yeah, I think it's Emily Van
Agent
Camp.
13.
Yeah. So
and I think Daniel Bro also is Baron Zemo is going to be back.
Which is good because they super underutilized him. He's quite good as an actor.
1,000% agree with you. I actually, before Civil War came out, I saw him in Inglourious Bastards.
Yep.
Tarantino. And I saw him in Rush, which is a super underrated movie. It's a Formula One movie by Ron Howard, and it stars an MCU star. Do you know who it is?
I don't. I've never
seen the
main
character. It's Chris Hemsworth. It's about this two racing drivers. Chris Hemsworth plays this driver named James Hunt from England, and then Daniel Grohl plays another driver named Nicky Lauda. I forget where Nicky was from, and he actually passed away like in the past year, but it's about their rivalry pretty much. Nicky Lauda, this is actually happened in real life. He got into a really serious accident and got burns all over his body. Really graphic stuff, and like he just pulled off the role so well. And I guess I'm going a bit off of a tangent there, but my point being is Daniel Brühl's a really good actor, and like you said, like they so underutilized him in Civil War. So the fact that we're gonna see him again as Zemo, I'm real excited about that as well.
Absolutely, and we'll do one quick one, then we'll get going into the meat of the topic. But as you were also a viewer of the DC Fandom Extravaganza, which we did talk about in episode 3, if you have not yet checked it out, now is the time. What was your favorite, you could call it announcement, moment, or just property most excited for after DC Fandom?
Definitely 2 things, and they both involve Batman. How about that? Obviously the Justice League trailer. Obviously, Nick has known me for a long time and knows how much I admire Zack Snyder and his work, especially what he initiated with the DCEU. He knows how much I love Man of Steel, that although it's not great here and there, it's still what I believe a really solid movie that makes Superman the most human it can get, which is I feel like is really hard to do, considering he's an alien and like this Titan godlike figure, and he humanizes him pretty well. But just seeing that trailer and like what Zach intended for that movie to be, like I just remember when he made the announcement with Henry Cavill a couple months ago, like tears in my eyes, not even kidding, because that's how much that movie's gonna like mean to me. And I'm just waiting for the day that they make the announcement and it comes out. on HBO Max, and finally being able to just, like, see that. And I mean, like, even just the ending of the trailer with, like, Ben Affleck's line, like, I'm blanking out, like, the entire thing, but, like, like, pretty much how, like, they haven't fought, like, the Justice League, like, united, like, just that line by itself just blew away the entire Joss Whedon Justice League movie. So that was amazing. And then also the Batman trailer. Really, really, really excited for that movie. I love the Robert Pattinson casting. I was a bit iffy at first about him portraying Batman, but I knew he could easily pull off Bruce Wayne, like suave kind of role. Super excited for Paul Dano in that. If you haven't seen the movie Prisoners, it's a must-watch. Hugh Jackman also is in that. Jake Gyllenhaal. I think of that, his role in that movie. I won't give away any spoilers, but Paul Dano's role in that is absolutely perfect for, I feel like, what they're going for with the Riddler and the Batman. And also Jeffrey Wright's in the movie, and, like, he's awesome.
Like, yeah.
No explanation needed. He's just awesome. Big treats for the fandom, which I thought they did an amazing job. I'm sure that was really hard to pull off, and Marvel hasn't really done anything like that in a while. So the fact that DC kind of has a leg up on them, it's kind of rare at the moment, but they did a really good job.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. As you brought up Marvel, before we get going, I just want to send out a quick message of condolence to the family and friends of Chadwick Boseman, who passed away very recently. He was a great actor, and as we're talking about superhero movies, I think it's fitting that we take some time to watch his catalog of movies, which is all available on Disney Plus, from his time as Black Panther with Captain America Civil War, obviously the crown jewel in Black Panther, and then Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. I know that's what I'll be doing this weekend. Hopefully you guys can join me in that in your own time and really celebrate what he has done and his time. Also, if you want some more, he's quite good in 42. I don't know if you saw that, John, but
standing in 42. It's the
good.
First time I sort of realized who he was, and I'm not even kidding, Nick. Like, I knew, I think right after 42 it was released, I knew they were starting to potentially cast that role of Black Panther, and I kind of said to myself, like, man, he'd be really good in that role. And my brother and I always had these discussions, like, he'd be great. And Marvel had this, I guess you can kind of call it like a fandom event, my freshman year of college, and they made the announcement that he was going to be T'Challa. He was going to be Black Panther, and I was so excited because that role just was meant for him. It's sad to say, but it's true. It kind of takes a tragedy to realize things sometimes. What we're realizing with Chadwick Boseman's death is that as much, he did so much justice for the character on screen, but it was also what it meant off the screen.
The role provided to Chadwick Boseman, what he did in the role, is very inspiring. But let's I'm happy that we had that moment. But let's get going, man. Let's get to the meat of the show. Yeah. So last summer, The Boyz aired 8 episodes in season 1 on Amazon Prime, starring Carl Urban from Lord of the Rings as Aramir and Star Trek, and Jack Quaid, who a lot of people may not know him from other things. I didn't recognize him at all, but he was Marvel in the first Hunger Games movie. Very different looking than he is now. Show is currently sporting an 8.7 rating on IMDb and is nominated for 1 Primetime Emmy Award for sound editing. I think that's a little low, but that's me. So first off, John, you and I both came off a rewatch. What were your overall thoughts on season 1, especially coming back to it again?
When I explain to people why they need to watch this show, I tell them that it's so different than any typical superhero show. It doesn't have the typical, the hero is in a conflict and they have to solve it, and there's a villain in the show and they defeat him at the end. Like, every single Marvel Netflix show had that same sort of structure. So it's a complete opposite. Now, I want to just clarify before we go, are we allowed to do spoilers and stuff?
I think at this point for season 1 we can do spoilers.
Okay.
It's a year removed.
Okay, that's a very good point. The fact that the heroes are a bunch of frauds is hilarious to me. And that's why this show is so different. And obviously with all the violence and kind of disturbing humor, this show is extremely different. And it also was the first show that kind of got me into the Amazon platform. Actually, might be the second, but one of the first shows I've watched on Amazon. And I have to tell you, they're really making a name for themselves as producing really good original content.
Man, it's funny you say that because so first of all, I never read the comics. All I had
My
was
list, actually.
the trailer. And I believe you were the one telling me how good it was. I remember I always get texts, "Oh, the Boys are so good. Oh, Nick, you should be watching this. You should be watching this." And with quarantine came more streaming service purchases. And lo and behold, I am now an Amazon Prime member. No big deal. And for the same reason that you said, I pretty much got it for Hunters, The Boys, and the latest season of The Expanse, which Amazon picked up from Sci-Fi. And from the trailer alone, you get, the season 1 trailer I rewatched it before this just to really remind myself what it was. And you get, even from that, couple minutes, you get irreverent humor, gore, and like you said, it's a unique take on the genre. I love it. It's tough to bring something different to a genre that I love it, but it's so mainstream now. It's tough to come up with a unique angle. And from the evil Superman Captain America hybrid to really good cinematography, the fight choreography is great. There wasn't as many like one-off big fights, but obviously there were some for sure in there. Like I can always remember the Black Noir fight. I mean, this show really has it all. And I think, like I said, there's so many, scenes and memories and storylines that I can think of. Like, there's so many why I like the show. But if you had to pick one, John, you could call it a scene or a character arc, whatever you want to call it, one that kind of really you think of, as like your this is why I like the show, this thing, this example. What would it be?
I think I always tell people that you need to like watch episode 4 of season 1, and that's where you're really gonna get hooked. And I think it's memorable for a bad reason, but it's symbolic for the character that it occurs to. The scene where the plane is hijacked and Homelander and Maeve, try to save the day, and Homelander just completely destroys the cockpit with this, laser beams, and pretty much doesn't even try to save the entire plane. And at that moment, you realize just how screwed up this guy is, that he just has no intentions of being good if it's not him on the spotlight. Everyone on that plane's nothing's gonna be known about on that plane. It's gonna go down. He doesn't care. And obviously you see that Maeve has a really big heart. It's like a little girl and her mother, like begging for them to be saved. And Homelander doesn't even give an effort to try to save the plane, save the people on there, and eventually goes down. And then and that's how the episode ends. And you just realize that this guy is just so messed up in the head. But you're kind of also wondering, why is he like this? How did he become this way? And obviously later on in the season, you find that out. But like that scene itself just solidifies everything. That again, this isn't your typical superhero show by any means.
Absolutely, man. It's funny. It's sort of the demystifying of the superhero trope, which the show has a lot of, and I mean, you can kind of see a little bit in the beginning. They don't really care about like civilian damage and casualties around them, but in that moment, you really see that. For me, I think the big moment isn't necessarily one thing. I kind of like the trajectory of the storyline for Starlight, and played by Erin Moriarty. And for me, I think a lot of shows like this, and you can see it kind of for Hunters as well, is you have a character that's kind of you as the audience is like guide into the world. So they're a part of the world, but you're kind of learning about the world for the first time because they're learning about it for the first time. And you could say, the main character is Huey, and I think like that's what you're supposed to think. But for me, especially watching it, I kind of looked at Starlight as a main character. Maybe it's because she's the one character, at least in season 1, who isn't like morally flexible. Like no one's fully good or bad. She's kind of the one person that really is good, I would say. So kind of seeing her growth as like a pageant queen, and then the girl from the small town who, wins the big lottery, and almost immediately like her whole world is turned upside down by this like awful misogynistic character, the Deep, who apparently is not that way in the comics, which I would have had no clue about how different it was.
What's he like in the comics?
Well, for start, he's not white. He wears a helmet the whole time, and seemingly he's not like a misogynistic, like terrible person. I didn't look like deeply into this, play on words. But yeah, apparently he's not that bad of a guy, which is interesting, the direction they took. And then seeing her like deal with this and then sort of overcome it and grow from this. I mean, she has so much taken away from her in such a short amount of time, from the people in the Seven to the guy Huey that, you know, she eventually realizes has kind of betrayed her a little bit, more like a lot bit. Just seeing, I guess, just her growth through the tragedy. It's tough, man. I think that's why I like it, because it's not all like happy. Like there are some episodes, like you said, where it's like either it's super messed up or it just like leaves you like bummed out, which is not how most superhero movies go, you know, I guess excluding Infinity War. But even then we figured it wasn't gonna last, like something was gonna change the status quo in that movie.
I have to agree. She's like a total badass character. Like every scene she's in, I really enjoyed it. And I think you bring up a good point that throughout the show, you see her. I always feel like everyone in this world has this like sense of innocence. And then when they eventually grow up, they realize that the world just isn't all flowers and sunshine, that there's bad stuff in this world. And we as the viewer see that with her. Realize that obviously in the beginning of the show that Vought and the Seven aren't really what they are. That they're more there for views and likes and clicks and viewership, not for really saving people at the beginning of the end of the day.
Yeah.
Finding out how she is the way she is with Compound V, like she loses her sense of innocence in the world. And I feel like throughout the season, like you mentioned, she's this small, farm town girl from Iowa, moves to the big city and just kind of gets tougher and meaner throughout the show. But it obviously is great character development for her, and obviously leading into season 2. And I think in season 2, she's going to be a huge ally to the boys, to the team. Obviously, I don't think she's going to be an immediate member, but I think at the end of season 2, you realize this is really effed up, whatever's going on with Vought. And I think she'll forgive Huey eventually and realize that he was only trying to help her to save her. And I'm really excited for her character in general in season 2.
No, I'm right there with you, man. I don't know if she's my favorite character, but I feel like I resonate with what she goes through more so than any other character, just because it feels like we all kind of, want to see the best in something in the world. And, it's kind of, how do you bounce back when you realize it's not? But that does bring me to my next question, John. There's a lot of great characters in this show. Some are a little underdeveloped compared to others, but there's a lot of great, well flushed out characters in the show. Who would you say is the one that whenever they are on screen the most, you perk up a little bit extra when that person's on screen?
You kind of go in so many different directions. I mean, one of my favorite characters is probably Homelander, because everyone loves a good villain. Like, obviously, me, you know how much of a Star Wars nerd I am. Like, it's just hard not to like Darth Vader. He's just such a cool character. Again, what makes Homelander so different is he's so evil. He just doesn't really give a crap. You see him throughout the show just kind of develop this just asshole mentality about him. And at times you kind of feel bad for him because he really never had a normal life. The scene where they're filming like the Vought propaganda of him growing up in this small town and being a baseball star. And like they just cut it and like he's like, what the fuck's my blanket doing here? This isn't really who he is. And that's when you start to realize like who he is as a character, and over time they're going to reveal how he was made pretty much, that he was just pretty much a test dummy. I think at the end, I'm blanking on the doctor's name that experimented on, I guess, but he said something along the lines of like, you're my greatest failure. Like, because he realized like what he made is just going to do so much harm in this world. And I think the season 2 trailers have just been really alluding to that this guy is going to it's just up to trouble. And obviously creating organizing soup terrorists, as they were calling them towards the end of season 1, and doing it to create storylines and viewership for Vought. Like, he thinks he's doing the right thing, but obviously this is just doing so much harm for the world. And I think, obviously Billy Butcher also. Like, how do you not like Carl Urban? I have to point something out for you. You missed one of his greatest roles when you were mentioning him before.
What did I miss?
Thor, Ragnarok.
Who is he in Thor?
You don't remember?
Oh, yeah.
Like on his character's name.
Executioner, right?
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
I definitely forgot that.
It's great in that.
Honestly, I think it's the makeup and the hair. I didn't even.
No hair, yeah.
I guess it's because I'm so used to seeing him with the beard. You know what I mean?
But
I know he's in Star Trek, but I don't really care about those movies.
I'm not a huge Trekkie, but he
No,
plays a good Bones McCoy.
oh
Pretty good.
yeah,
But Billy Butcher is just like, I mean, obviously he's the leader of the boys, like this really tough guy mentality. Like you really are introduced to him, like of how ruthless this guy is in his fight with Translucent inside of Huey's like
like
technologies.
yeah, like a Circuit City, like a small
Yeah,
town Circuit
like a
City.
Radio Shack.
Radio Shack. There we go.
Like a Radio Shack when those used to exist. But but I mean, he's this is like I feel like Carl Urban was born for this role. Like he was meant to play this role.
It's funny because that's who I would have said too was Carl Urban was who I would pick. Just and like it may feel like cheesy. That's like saying like oh, your favorite actor in the Star Wars original trilogy is like Mark Hamill. You know what I mean? Like it's because it's the main character, which like.
Yeah.
Once again, I think the interesting thing about the boys is that like you could say who the main character could be, Huey or Starlight or Homelander. It doesn't have to be Carl Urban's character.
Yeah.
I think like when I looked at this list of actors, I really only immediately knew, like as far as the main cast went, I only really immediately knew who Carl Urban was. I didn't really know anyone else like inherently, which I think is good sometimes because you don't just want to be like, oh look, that's Ryan Gosling, that's Ryan Reynolds, and kind of like get taken out of the roles a little bit because it's just people but I feel like you can kind of see like, I mean, he has to play such an interesting, weird, complex character of like joking and like everything doesn't like nothing really matters, but like at the end of the thing he's such a like a dark tortured soul, and playing that weird balance is so interesting to me. And I feel like he's just a good actor, and I feel like you can really tell with like what his role is, how good he is. And I feel like I just whenever he's on the screen I enjoy it. I mean, obviously I think we're gonna get a little more of like the less joking version after the like season 1 finale.
Oh yeah.
But obviously the trailers do say like he's not going away, like the fun version.
Oh yeah, and the build up in season 1 of why he's doing this, and then just dropping that bomb on us in season 1, like you feel for him so much. It's gonna be interesting, because like what now for him?
Yeah.
Becca's alive, and he found her. But like, what now? What does he do? And that's what I think they ended really well with season 1, because there's not really a story written out going forward.
Yeah, I absolutely am curious of what like how they get back into it, transition between that. But we've said there's a lot of great things about the boys that we like. Is there anything that you didn't like about season 1?
Not much, to be honest with you. Maybe Translucent was really annoying, to be honest with you.
It's fair.
But there really wasn't, there weren't really cheesy moments like we discussed earlier in the podcast. The action's awesome, like pretty easy to follow storyline. Maybe, I guess like adding what you said earlier, maybe a bit more action in season 2, which I think we're obviously going to get because the show is so much more developed. It has that ground to build up on. So maybe just more action, I guess, going forward. But I really don't have much that I didn't not like about season 1.
For me, I think, and I'll be curious if you agree with this, the only thing, and like it's tough, you have 8 episodes to fit a lot of content, is you really don't get a lot of usage or screen time for Black Noir, who looks like a super cool character. And he's mostly used for joke scenes. He's like on the piano hanging around, he's like drinking some drink, he's really not particularly seen except for one really good fight scene, which was awesome to see him. And I know I've seen a lot of news that he's supposed to be much more prevalent this season in usage, and things are supposed to be like wild. I saw some quote, I don't know if it was from a director or one of the people in the cast, but I did get a chance to check out a clip from season 2 with him in it, and it's kind of juxtaposed to Giancarlo Esposito's character like in a business meeting, and he's like going to town on a complex of people, like just him, and it looks quite cool. So I think my hope is we get to see more, because like we all like the Batman-like character, and if we can kind of draw comparisons between who's in the 7 and who is semi-represented, and even though it's not the same, you kind of get a little bit of the Batman vibe from Black Noir.
See, I don't look at him being left out in season 1 is a bad thing. It's like, I'm with you. I wish I saw more of him, but it's going to answer one of the questions you have later for me. But I'm excited. That's what I'm most excited for in season 2, honestly, is his character. Because we didn't get a lot of it. And I think there's a lot more to dig into that they're going to really develop in season 2, giving us that Batman type detective character. I don't know. I wouldn't really call him a detective as much. I kind of reminds me of G.I. Joe a bit. Forget the character's name, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. Like Snake Eyes or something.
Yeah, Snake Eyes.
Gosh, those movies are brutal. Oh, I can't believe you brought up G.I. Joe.
You mean we're gonna kill Channing Tatum in the first 5 minutes of the second movie?
Well, it's because he didn't want to be in it. Those are garbage movies. Oh hell!
But I'm real. I can see why that would upset someone of him, not being in the season 1 as much. Yeah. But I'm so excited for him in season. We'll get.
I believe that's my next question for you. Actually, is and we can kind of elaborate on that. Is the thing that you want to see more of from season 1 in season 2?
Besides Black Noir, you also mentioned another character just a couple moments ago, Giancarlo Esposito.
Mm-hmm.
Can't rate his character, Mr. Edgar, as they call him. They allude to him throughout season 1, and they finally do the big reveal at the end of who he is. I think you can agree with me that every single role that this guy is in recently, whether it be Moff Gideon in The Mandalorian, obviously his most famous role is Gus Fring in Breaking Bad. Like, this guy is a total badass, despite his age. He's a bit of an older actor, but like he plays such an intimidating role every time that he's on screen. And I mean, obviously, he's taking pretty much the screen time away from Stillwell had in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to kind of be that VOD representative that we see for the most part in season 2, and it's going to kind of be interesting to see his dynamic with members of the Seven. I feel like the vibe I was kind of getting from season 1 is they kind of fear him. Maybe.
Yeah, I got that same vibe. Absolutely.
Okay, that's good. I'm not the only one then. But the fact that they have a name like that, like, and I kind of forgot he was in the show. I mean, like what you said earlier, like besides Carl Urban, there really weren't any well-known names besides him and Carl Urban. A little bummed out that we didn't get to see more of him in season 1, but that just means we're going to see much more of him in season 2, which is awesome, obviously. So that's definitely what I'm most excited for.
I wonder if you and I are pretty much having the same answers. That I said obviously I want more Black Noir. The one thing that I was watching the trailers and I was like, I remember seeing Starlight in the more like provocative costume, and I was like, oh, is that how it ended in season 1? I didn't think it did, but maybe it did. And it didn't. In season 1, the last time you see her, it's in her old costume. So initially I was like, oh, I want to see her back to her like original costume. Because that's one of the things that I really liked about like her is, and it's weird because it's not like the most exciting scene is at when she goes back home at like the like faith gathering thing. And you kind of see like her fight against like society, like that type of society that's very restrictive and conservative. And then at like the race, when like she's like talking to the one little girl, and there's a really nice scene about how she's like likes the little girl's costume when the like other like idiots in the crowd are like being kind of like creepy. And like, so initially I saw that scene too. I was like, oh, why is she in that costume again? But there's a lot of questions of how they're going to get into like season 2, like with her still being on the team after like what she did to A-Train and stuff. But like you said, I mean, we talked about Giancarlo Esposito on our Emmys episode, and like it feels like he's going to be really busy for a little bit because like you said, Breaking Bad, he's still filming that role in Better Call Saul. I kind of like Better Call Saul a little more because it focuses
great
more
things
on
about that show. I really do.
Well, as I've said on this podcast before, you should, if you're a Breaking Bad fan and you haven't jumped on to Better Call Saul yet, you're missing out because it's the best storylines minus like, and like, look, we like the Walter White story, right? We like Bryan Cranston, but the family scene sometimes not my favorite. Right? Like getting breakfast with the fam is not my cup of tea. And this kind of makes it so you're really just following Mike and Gus and Saul and all the right people. So that's you need to jump on it. But if he's filming a ton there, the assumption is he's going to have a bigger role in Mandalorian. And in this, I mean, he's good in everything. And like, even though you've never seen Once Upon a Time, he does a pretty good job in that show as like a mirror he's the magic mirror, in case you didn't know, which, let's be real, you didn't. Yeah, I know. Well, I'm here to help. So yeah, and any more of like him being the bad businessman kind of vibe, that we obviously get from Breaking Bad, which is kind of what we got here, all about it. And I'd be, it's not, let's say we have a wish list, right? It's not the most important for a little more Simon Pegg, because obviously we like him.
That was going to be one of my answers. I want more of him. More Simon Pegg.
And I know that, like, neither of us are so familiar with the source material, but like the role of Huey was based on his likeness. And so that's why they included him, because obviously he was too old when they made it to be Huey. And I don't think he's ever going to be important on the show, but I do like Simon Pegg, and any, version of him in season 2 would be just peachy for me.
Oh yeah. Give me anything with Simon Pegg in it, I'll watch it.
So speaking of season 2, having seen the teaser and the final trailer, it really looks good to me. More of the same we got from season 1. I love how they play with like music and sometimes use songs that like are kind of a dissonance for the vibe that's going on in what we're watching.
Billy Joel songs.
Yeah.
One in the season 2 trailer, and then they ended one of the episodes in season 1 with Billy Joel.
They love the classics, which I can always appreciate. But much more gore. Obviously, the stakes are elevated because they're all going to be wanted now. And kind of the whale thing has been teased everywhere. So, like, and like obviously the thing is, you watch the teasers and trailer content too much, you get spoiled on things that would be great to watch live that you're seeing ahead of time. But I love the things where they're showing like Homelander like lasering an army guy seemingly at like a public rally. Obviously we're going to see a shakeup in the hierarchy with Stormfront coming in, who I had never seen Aya Cash in anything before, and obviously more Giancarlo Esposito. There's a lot good looking things happening in season 2. And I will say on the trailers there is a little hint at Starlight in like everyday person clothes, like helping out the boys, so there may be more of that. But what are you most excited about what you've seen so far from season 2?
I'm kind of going to go off topic here because I think what I'm most excited for, I think as fans we know what we're in for. We know we're in for blood, gore, humor, action. That's expected. I think what I'm most excited for are some of the unanswered questions from season 1.
Okay.
What happened to Stillwell's baby at the end, Teddy? If you recollect, one of the last scenes before Butcher just blows up her house, Stillwell, it's Billy Butcher, Homelander, and Stillwell's baby, Teddy.
Mm-hmm.
No sign of Teddy in the last scene. So I want to know what happened to her baby.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it kind of goes into another topic with her. Who's the baby's father? They never revealed that whatsoever.
Yep.
I think my first thought was like, maybe is it Homelander? But I feel like that's kind of too easy to write in.
What if it's him without knowing? Like what if it's like artificial insemination?
But like they sort of did that already with him and Becca's son. Like,
well, no,
you know
the assumption is he literally did it. I'm saying like she has his DNA.
Oh, okay. So you're
like
saying
without him knowing.
Oh, that'd be kind of interesting.
That's and it's funny you say the thing with the baby, because I honestly watched it 2 times now, and there's neither time thought about the baby in the house.
Yeah, that was one of my first thoughts immediately was what happened to the baby.
That's a good question.
So hopefully we get some clarity on that. Another thing I kind of want to know about is who is Kimiko's brother? When they first revealed her story, they mentioned that her and her brother got separated. Now, one of my immediate thoughts when watching this show was, oh, her brother's going to be Black Noir.
I don't buy
At first thought. Now, I knew nothing about the character. Who is her brother? Like, I just want to know. They're not going to just say that and just not do anything with it. Plus, they had the big fight scene together. Wouldn't it kind of be ironic that brother and sister are fighting with one another as well?
It's a good thought. Yeah. I had not thought of any of those 3 questions, so I'm happy you brought those up. I'll say the other last little thing I definitely am excited for is, and I'm sure you are too, because it came out after all the trailer stuff. Like there was an article about Lamplighter.
Yes, that was one of that was my last one. I was going to add one more, and that's it.
Being cast as Sean Asmore, who we love as Iceman from the X-Men franchise. There's so many questions around his character, more so than I remember. Like when I watched it the second time, where they like the reason the boys like broke up was because of something with Lamplighter. He torched Mallory's kids because of this, and there's a lot of questions about what he did and how he's going to be back. Now, the only concern I have, and this is because I live on IMDb, so that he's going to be back for a small amount of time and be gone and like be very quick, because at the end of the day, they can't have all these storylines and characters floating around like forever. Not everyone can be in 8 episodes the entire time. There's just not enough screen time. And clearly he's not one of the main characters because he's not in the 7. So when you look at how many episodes he's in, which is something that I do because that's how I am.
I don't want you to spoil it for me. I don't know how many episodes he's in.
Do you want me to not tell you?
No, please don't.
Okay. So it's not all of them. I'll say that.
Just I figured that, but
and kind of, you know, when I think of other characters like that, like Mesmer, right? He was in it for a bit, and Ashmore's in more than that, but like that would be the one thing I would hate to see is like he'd be like in it and gone, because I do quite like Shawn Ashmore, you know, and he's not just obviously an X-Men. I also he's quite good in The Following, which I don't know if anyone's really delved into, one of the like FX shows at Fox shows that last for like 3 seasons, I think. But that would be the only thing. I really am excited for him. I just get nervous that he's not going to be in it long because there's only so many characters that they can have screen time for, and already, you know, with Stormfront's character coming in there from Aya Cash, obviously Giancarlo Esposito's taking over for Mallory, and if they're giving Black Noir a little more time, it just starts to get a little busy.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was the best part about me rewatching season 1, was kind of getting that refresher of why Mallory's in the story to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I didn't really catch that in season 1. The first time I watched it,
Same.
Is really like I didn't realize that Lamplighter was pretty much the reason for her breaking up the boys, breaking up the group. So I'm glad I caught that, because I think he will have a instrumental part in season 2 at least.
I think it'll be really important, even if it's not the most like prolonged part.
For sure.
So one of the biggest differences, besides some of the castings comes and goes, is you can catch these episodes. It's a bit of a different format this season. Last season had a bulk release day, which we're all very used to with the whole binge stream platform, where season 2 will have 3 episodes drop today, September 4th, while the rest will be weekly, concluding on October 9th. But don't worry, you know, season 3 is already renewed, which I'm sure you're excited about. And like, let's be real, this is one of those shows that, barring something crazy, you assume they will finish the story to completion with whatever the comic property is. But what do you think about having to wait for episodes after, you know, the quick binge is over by the end of the day? Because I'm assuming you and me are both going to do the same thing.
That is a fact. I'll be watching all 3 tomorrow. You know what? It's like I think we all dealt with it with The Mandalorian. That's really the first show I've dealt with where it's done that, and you just get used to it.
Yeah.
You know, plus it gives you the time to rewatch the episode during the week. You can watch it like that Friday, then watch it again, same episode that Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then watch the next episode that Friday. They're doing it every Friday, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, same day. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't mind it. Is it a little annoying? Sure, but you know what? It gives us more time to watch it and spread it out.
You know, like, you know, maybe 5-10 years ago, we all had to be used to it because that's how TV worked.
What? Well, what's TV?
You know, you'd get there and gather the fam around to watch the latest episode of Prison Break. You know?
It's cable.
Gosh, we are spoiled in the age of streaming things, that's for sure. So one thing, and you mentioned it, I wanted to make sure I got it out there because I didn't include it in anything I said initially. Anthony Starr, the perfect Homelander.
Awesome.
Casting they did there, amazing.
If I may cut you off there, his American accent is like perfect. You would never know that he has a foreign accent.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, he's not American. Like, he's not from the U.S.
Gosh, it's like The Walking Dead, where like everyone's British.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even think he's British. I don't know where he's from, but plays I guess that kind of makes my point, is you would never even know that he's not American.
No clue. It's such like a ballpark hot dog apple pie voice. Yeah. American.
I mean, he has an American flag as a cape. Like, it doesn't get any more American than that, you know. Like, and he pulls off the role so well.
he like with the super creepy like mommy issues and
Oh,
like
so weird.
he's but like at other times he's just so like in control and charismatic. It's so weird, like the like on a dime turn, like a jumps from one version of him to the other, and
Yeah, like at the religious festival, like how he's just talking to the crowd, and then he flies into the air and he does like the Jesus Christ symbol as he's in the air, like just that he's this like larger than life kind of figure. Like he just from scene to scene, he's just completely different and just pulls it off so well.
seriously. But any other last little thoughts from me that you wanted to bring up about Boys as we get ready to get off the podcast and go watch the show?
Just anyone that's not watching it and is listening to this, go watch it now. It is one of the most underrated and underappreciated shows that's on TV. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, shows on Amazon Prime, I believe. And I think season 2 is really gonna jump the show into like conversation of like, man, this is a really good show. That it's not gonna go unrecognized anymore. I mean, the fact that season 3 is already renewed and like they haven't even season 2 hasn't even been released yet. Like that shows that whoever's pulling the strings behind the scenes like has confidence in this show and knows what it's capable of. So get on it. It's a really good show.
And it's a quick watch. It's only 8 episodes, season 1. So even if you're just starting it this weekend, especially with it being a long weekend, you can easily get through 11 episodes with how good people are at binging these days. And I hope it ranks in the Amazon's upper echelon. I mean, I don't watch Marvelous Miss Maisel. I know that's their like big award darling right now, but my hope is with that and Hunters, both at least for season 2 and this for season 3 already, that those shows will sort of get their due and that they can help Amazon kind of combat the like clear hierarchy of and you can choose to order however you want, but clearly Hulu, Netflix, and HBO Max are all, I would say, above Amazon Prime still.
What about Apple TV?
Maybe one day I'll have the money for Apple TV, but that
every single trailer I see for a show on that platform just looks terrible.
The actors are so good.
Great actors. Jason Momoa, one show, then like
Chris
they have the entire like
Steve
just
Carell.
another show of like Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell and Billy Crudup and
actors,
Reese Witherspoon.
The actors look amazing. Honestly, even the cinematography looks amazing. I can't do another one. I can't right now.
Every review for the show, I read it just atrocious.
When this podcast blows up, John, at our 100th episode, and we can make money solely on this podcast, that's when I'll indulge in an Apple TV. That's my an Apple Plus, whatever it's called. That's when I'll jump in.
Take your word on that.
But first off, thanks, man. Thank you so much for being the first ever guest to this podcast. Where can people reach you on Twitter?
Reach me at JButensky,
at JButensky, folks. His Twitter feed is very similar to mine.
I will triple check for you. I'm not great with social media.
It's Butensky. I looked it up.
Okay, there we go. So
I know your Twitter.
He's confirming it for me. That's how much I know.
I know your social media better than you do, but it's a lot like what mine is. So if you guys want some HBO Max video retweets about superhero movies and the genre itself, with a little bit of sports thrown in there, probably a little more than me, but you'll get a good chunk of fun content from that. And who knows, you fans, we may be hearing from you very soon again, John. You are a member of the gang, so I'm sure we'll have you on many a times whenever the John Butensky signal lights up in the sky. You'll come crawling back to the podcast.
I love it. And thanks for having me on, Nick. Just two guys just talking about a great TV show. It really just makes us think back our times at Marist. Just quick story, Nick was technically one of my bosses at Marist. Great boss, even better friend. Like, just all good stuff.
This is what the fans want. Two boys just opening up their hearts to each other. I love it, man.
Isn't that what it's all about? That's what we need in this world right now.
Seriously. It's funny. I was going to do a tease of social media, but we went to heart things, so I'll just throw the tease in there anyway. But speaking of social media,
Make sure to check us out on all platforms, either knickknack_IC or Knickknack Movies. We have a ton of fun things going on throughout the week that you guys don't want to miss out on. We just put out a lovely handy-dandy guide for the freeform 31 Days of Halloween, your essential watching guide, which does mean Hocus Pocus 8 times. That's what we're going to do here. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, many more. Make sure to write us a review, rate us 5 stars. If you're not going to rate us 5 stars, don't rate us at all. Stay home. And really let the world know how this is something that everyone should be listening to. Let's make this internationally known, this podcast. But this is Nick McGann for John Butensky. Until next time, cinephiles.
Are you not entertained? I think this is gonna be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I don't like goodbyes. Let's just call this see you later.